Lockdown, Chapter 18, page 123. When I got to Evergreen, Mr. Hoof was sitting in his room. A mask covered his nose and mouth. He looked at me and didn't say nothing, and I didn't say nothing. Something had happened, and I guessed he needed help breathing. The mask was attached by a tube to a little machine sitting on the table next to his bed. The machine made a low hissing noise that was louder when Mr. Hoof was breathing. Sounded like Darth Vader. I sat in the corner and didn't stare at him or anything. There were some magazines on the end of his bed, and I wished I had one, but I didn't want to just ignore Mr. Hooft or act like I didn't care what was happening to him. I also had a letter that Mr. Cintron gave me in the morning just before I left for Evergreen. The letter was from K-Man. I had had time to read it before I left, but then I got worried that K-Man was going to say he wasn't my friend anymore and just put the letter in my pocket. After 20 minutes or so, Nancy Opara came into the room and took the mask off Mr. Hooft and asked him how he was feeling. "I don't like that thing," he said. "The doctor said you had to wear it to assist with your breathing," Nancy said. "You don't want to put a strain on your heart, do you?" "That machine puts a strain on my heart, on my brain," Mr. Hooft answered. I liked that. Nancy took Mr. Hooft's temperature and blood pressure and wrote them down on his chart. Before she left, she told me that I looked like a Hausa. "Do you know what the Hausa people in Africa?" she asked. "Tell her you're American," Mr. Hooft said. Me and Nancy laughed, and she left. "So, Mr. Big-Time Criminal, who did you shoot today?" Mr. Hooft asked me. "You know I didn't shoot anybody," I said. "Why are you on my case anyway?" "I'm just interested in knowing how the criminal mind works," Mr. Hooft said. "My mind works just like yours," I said. "How can your mind work just like mine?" Mr. Hooft leaned back in his chair. "I'm not a criminal. You're the one in jail. Keep that in mind." "Yeah, well, you were in jail once," I said. "It was not a jail," Mr. Hooft said. "It was a children's camp, and it was during the war, entirely different. With you, there's no war on, and you people like to shoot each other and fight. That's what you do, right?" I shrugged and thought about King Kong. "Sometimes you can't help it," I said. "If somebody wants to fight you, then you get stuck in it." "Why do they want to fight you?" "Didn't you tell me that this guy in your camp wanted to fight you?" I said. "Why didn't he want to fight you?" "I don't know," Mr. Hooft said. "Maybe he lost himself. Sometimes people lose themselves, and then they do funny things. It happened in the camp. Sometimes they would stand up and scream. Maybe they would run around naked. I don't know. He was in the camp and as lost as the rest of us. We stopped knowing who we were." "How you stop knowing who you are?" "You know your name," Mr. Hooft said. "You look in the mirror and you see your face, your eyes staring back at you. But what does it all mean? Are you a man? One time a man was somebody strong and big, but who are you when you are not strong anymore, not big anymore? Are you a father, a grandfather? But what happens when your children walk away, when they don't come to see you? Are you a father if you don't have a son?" "You losing me, man," I said. "I don't understand what you're saying." "It doesn't matter." Mr. Hooft waved his hand in the air. "In the end, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that I keep my eye on you. You never let a hoodlum get behind you, so I have to keep you in front of me at all times." "I'm not a hoodlum," I said. "You probably have one of those guns they have in the Middle East," Mr. Hooft said. "Those automatic guns. That's what you people like. Shoot as many people as you can real quick." Mr. Hooft nodded to himself, and I knew he was enjoying messing with me. The room was pretty neat except for some papers on the floor, and I picked them up and put them in the garbage can. The can had a plastic lining, and after I had picked everything up, I removed the lining and took it out to the big trash can in the hall closet. When I got back, Mr. Hooft had got up in his bed and was pulling the sheet over his legs, which were really skinny and white. "You know, there's a guy at Progress that's always wants to fight me," I said. "You think you don't know who he is?" "Where is he?" "Progress," I said. "That's the name of the jail I'm in." Mr. Hooft leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. "That's a jail? And they call it Progress?" "I guess they don't want to call it just plain jail," I said. "But Progress?" "They gotta call it something," I said. "They have all young people like you, or they have older men too?" "From 12 to 17, I said. "This boy, he doesn't like you?" "I don't think he likes anybody," I said. "He's just a jerk." "You think the Japanese will kill you if you fight him?" "There aren't... that's stupid," I said. "Don't you like to fight?" "I can take care of myself," I said. "I'm not afraid of this dude, man." "Look at you, puffing up like a bird," Mr. Hooft said. "The two of you are finding yourselves." "So this guy died and the Japanese let you out?" I asked. "The war ended," Mr. Hooft said. "It ended as horribly as it began, with bombs. When I got home to the Netherlands, I was a hero. My family treated me like a king. I was young when I left Java, and so most of my life I was celebrated. I came to America when I was 20, and only worked important jobs because I knew who I was. You'll never find out anything, because you have more muscles than brains in your head, and you have a very round head. Did you know that?" "My head isn't that round," I said. "Do you drink tea?" "Tea?" "Yeah, sometimes." "When you get out of jail and I get out of here, you can come to my house and maybe we'll have a glass of tea together," Mr. Hooft said, "and you can teach me to be a hoodlum." "Yo, man, you know I'm not..." He turned away from me and looked out toward the window. "When I get out, maybe we can hook up," I said. Mr. Hooft didn't look at me, but he nodded. I finished straightening up the place, and after a while I could see he was asleep. Nancy looked in. "You do a nice job for a Hossa boy," she said. "Sometimes Hossa boys are lazy." Mr. Pugh was 5 minutes late in picking me up. He searched me, which wasn't necessary, and found K-Man's letter, which he said he was going to confiscate. "Mr. Cintron gave me that letter just before I left the joint," I said. "You need to clear it with..." He smacked me hard across the face. Case closed. I thought about what Mr. Hooft had said about the kid in the children's camp fighting him, even though the Japanese didn't allow any fighting. The bully paid for that fight with his life. But I didn't know about him trying to find himself. I didn't even know how to figure out if you could lose yourself. At home, out in the world, everybody knew where they were and mostly where they were going. I was handcuffed in the back of the van. I knew I was going back to Progress. I knew one day I would be out and going back to the streets. I was scared that one day after that I might be headed back to Progress or another jail like the predictions of everybody was throwing at me. In my hood, that's what happened. We all saw what was going down, but why it was going down was harder to get to. Mr. Hooft's talk about getting out of Evergreen was strange. It almost sounded like he was in lockdown, the same as me.